Today's video is all about the Pilot brush. This is Seint's newest brush. It's a 4-in-1 do-it-all with just this one little brush brush. So today we're going to talk about it. I know your orders are starting to arrive, and I've gotten lots of questions on what kind of application is this good for, so on and so forth. And here's the thing, you can do it all with this. But today I'm going to teach you two different techniques. One that I would consider a beginner friendly, I want just a very natural look, but all from one brush, and a more advanced technique for my ladies who really like and feel like they need to be able to color correct. So if you are taking one brush on the road with you on a vacation or even in your car, I want you to see how this one brush can do it all, and I'm going to provide you with some options. So if that sounds like a video that you are interested in, let's get into it. First off, this is what the brush looks like. It's absolutely beautiful. I am in love with the black. If we could tell Seint, give us all black brushes, I would not be mad about that. So feel free to email in and let them know that black is where it's at. So what do we have on the middle part? We have these two smaller ends, and these can be used for a multitude of things. My thought process was, if I was Seint, I wanted to ensure that I had something for the face and something for the eyes. So as we do half the face in this beginner technique, primarily we're gonna reserve these inside two brushes as the brushes for our eyes. But you could certainly do more with them, and we'll talk about that on the advanced technique side. Then we have more of our face application brushes. And again, these can be used in a multitude of ways. Here's what I want you to understand. The more dense the brush, the more heavy the application is going to be, unless you're very aware of the density of the bristles. So when I look at this side right here, I could do my entire face with this one side. This is very similar to the blush and bronzer brush. This is the dome end of the blush and bronzer brush, but what you're gonna see that is different, and when I say it's very similar, I mean in density. This actually looks most similar to the 3D brush, which is this brush right here, but you'll see they are not exact. This one is a little bit fluffier, which is my personal preference because it gets me closer to the density of the blush and bronzer brush, which I feel like is the perfect brush for a beginner or also for somebody who likes to build their product in light layers. The 3D end, the bigger end of the 3D brush, is a little bit denser. It is our most popular selling brush because it is called the 3D brush and this is 3D foundation. And I just think naturally, this is the brush that people gravitate to because they like to teach this makeup in one layer. And this is a simple enough brush to do that. But the density of this means it's gonna pick up more product. It's going to pick up more product than this one, even though they look similar. The shape is slightly different, but the density of this is less. So this is more dense than this. And this is more dense than this. But none of these are as dense as the shape brush. So this is our natural finish brush. This is our natural to buildable medium finish brush. This one starts at medium, and then we have a full coverage brush. This guy falls somewhere right in here. So why does that matter? If you're used to using this brush, you are going to have to build your application a little bit more with this one. You can get this outcome super easy with this brush. It's just about learning to tweak things a little bit because this is going to pick up very little product. So you're going to need to press on more to get the same finish that you have here, and I'll show you that here. If you're a lover of the shape brush and you like a natural finish, the density of these is actually very similar. There are just more surface area being covered with this one, but it is a little more dense. So if you like the shape brush for a natural finish, you can absolutely get that with here. It's actually very little tweaking involved. The end of the brush is just a little bit different. Why did they make this one different than all the others? So that it could do all the things, okay? If you notice, it becomes more like a knife end, like the detail brush, which is this one right here. So again, they're not exact, but it's similar. This brush is actually incredibly well thought out because it's giving me the ability to contour. It's soft enough to buff. It's dense enough to press, and there is enough like circleness, that's not the right word, but in order to bronze, like it can really, you can do it all right here. Then we have this end, which is truly most similar to the 3D brush, but it is a little bit softer. People like to use the 3D brush under the eye. I'm not a huge fan because this is so dense that it picks up a lot of product. And if you're somebody like me that has fine lines, wrinkles, discoloration, I actually have like a hollowness under my eye, the last thing I want is a ton of product sitting on my face. So that is the same concern that I have with this end of the brush. However, if I'm careful, if I'm taking a minute to think about it, I can pick up less product and I can press it on and I can use my finger to diffuse it, which I will show you here in a minute. But this is also great for pressing on a setting powder. So this brush, like I said, is very well thought out. And I just wanted to explain so that you know, if you are somebody who uses the shape brush, the blush and bronzer brush, or the 3D brush, how this is going to kind of fall in there for you so that you know what to expect, so that when you go to start to use it, you know, do I need to be a little bit more light-handed if I want the coverage of the shape brush, or do I need to build if I want a more medium coverage like I would get from the blush and bronzer or the 3D brush. Let's go ahead and get started with our beginner technique here. For our beginner technique, I'm gonna use main highlight shade, brightening highlight shade, some contour, some bronzer, and a lip and cheek, and then we'll do a quick eyeshadow look. And I'm gonna show you how I would do it for the 5-minute face. We're keeping it super simple. So I would start by tapping this in, and you're gonna see it sits on the top of the bristles. That's actually what I love about these black bristles for the purposes of education. Your brush should always feel dry. Do you see how it doesn't even come down into the bristles at all? It sits on top. That's the same with all of these if you're putting the right amount of product on it. If you're ever digging in there and starting to get product in between the bristles, you have too much. You're better served to go back in and pick up more the second time around and press it on than you are to try and get so much on the brush that you have to like sweep it across the face. Tap, tap, press, press. That's the easiest way to build your coverage in light layers and to get a skin-like finish without it feeling heavy or cakey or anything like that. So again, this is just my main highlight. I'm pressing in using the dome end, pressing it on anywhere that I would want coverage, except my under eye, as I'm gonna reserve that for your traditional 5-minute face application. I'm gonna go into the eyelids. Now I'm gonna flip the brush over, and here's what I'm gonna do as somebody who has a mature under eye. I'm going to press this on to the side. See how much more product you're picking up just based on the density here? And I'm gonna start this application on the outside where I have a little bit less texture. I am still textured out here. I have lots of crow's feet, but I'm gonna start my application out there and I'm gonna work it inward. Wherever you touch first, you deposit the most. And now I'm working this into the center of the face so that we can just brighten that up a little bit. Tap, tap, pressing it in between the brows, coming down the middle of the nose, center of the lip, center of the face, underneath the chin. So now we've created a lighter and a brighter under eye, but we haven't done any color correction, and I do have mature skin. So this is going to be a natural 5-minute face. If I want more coverage, my under eyes are bothersome to me, my hyperpigmentation is bothersome to me, then I'll show you how to use the brush on this side to get better coverage. And with better coverage typically comes better longevity. But my face does look similar from the discoloration standpoint on both sides. So you'll see we still have a really nice kind of like tinted moisturizer skin tint sort of coverage level here. This has all been diminished, easily could go out into the world and feel very confident. So I've used my main highlight, I've used my brightener. I'm gonna go ahead and pinch this brush together, back to that dome end, into the contour, and I'm just gonna stamp it and flick up. Now we've contoured our cheekbone, squeeze it. And if you want less contour, don't even bother to squeeze it, just tap in and then press it along. I find that our contour is, I know that our contour is drier than our highlights, and it's meant to be. because Seint wanted to create a contour that had coverage but stayed put. And they have achieved that by creating a drier formulation. So I just find it easier to make the brush more dense, to pick up product and stamp it on. Squeeze, drawing under here. And now I'm going to assess. I do have a microfiber cloth, and I'm gonna wipe off any excess when I'm using this one brush, just to make sure that my contour is not blending into my main highlight. I know you see a lot of people online not clean their brush. You don't have to, but if you're somebody like me who doesn't want any contour on the areas of the face where I need a little bit more brightness, I'm just cognizant of that. Again, if I'm gonna put a lip and cheek on here, and then maybe I wanted to touch up on my forehead, I just don't wanna get any lip and cheek here. And while it may be very minimal, this only takes a little bit of product to actually put it on the face. So I say wipe it on a microfiber cloth if you have one available. If not, you'll be fine. Main highlight, brightening highlight, contour is done. Let's go ahead. I'm tapping same fluffy end in between my bronzer and my illuminator. And I'm just hugging that contour line to add a little bit of glow, pull it down the neck. And now all we have left is lip and cheek. So I'm gonna flip over to the appropriate layer of my palette, and you can do a much. If you are a minimalist, like I want one brush and I want a small palette, we can get you this brush and we can get you a small palette. No problem. I like all the things. So I'm gonna do a little mix in here just to make sure that you can see it on camera. Sometimes you have to go a little heavier on camera to make sure you can see. Now I'm gonna flip this over. I'm just gonna tap out that edge there where I wanna make sure that everything is nice and diffused. My blush doesn't come too high. My brightening shade is still doing its job and kind of melting everything together. I'm gonna wipe that off and just make sure we are good to go. At this point, if you wanted to use your perfector sponge to remove excess, you could certainly do so. Probably best to do that before you put on your lip and cheek because of the formulation. I want a little more coverage, so I'm tapping a little bit more on. Again, when I don't color correct, I'm very aware of the darkness under my eye. So you could always use your finger. The warmth of your finger is really going to help melt the product into the skin. And there we go. Lastly, I'm gonna flip over to my powders. Now, I am going to use this end to powder my face. I don't like to mix powder and cream brushes because I don't want there to be any shift in the formulation. I don't want anything to look cakey. So I am gonna wipe this off before the next time I use it, if my intent when using it is to put cream on it. I did put cream down in my eye to just neutralize that. So I'm gonna powder that so I can get a good blend. Go around the smile lines. Now we're gonna pop off the edges here, and we are going to use the inside of the brush to do an eye look. Again, we have a fluffy end that is round, but you can also knife edge it a little bit. And then we have a more dense small end, which round, it doesn't do much, okay, because it is small and dense. So I'm going to use this as the crease. I'm gonna keep it super simple today, and we are gonna go into a crease and above shade. By above, I mean up on to the hood of my eye. When my eye is open, I have a hooded eye, so I have to get it above the crease in order to be seen. I'm just gonna do small circular motions. We're windshield wipering, kind of connecting in to the nose here so that we have a wider looking eye and continuity on the face. Windshield wipering, and then small circular motions just to make sure we have a good blend. And I'm gonna flip over to the smaller end, and I'm gonna go into a shade like Drift. You could also easily use your finger, which is typically what I do with a shimmer of any sort, is I use my finger. Flipping back over, blending that corner, Packing a little bit onto the tip of the brush, going inner corner, tear duct, underneath the brow. Blend, done. Now let's talk about how we can use this one brush the way I traditionally teach the application of this method for anyone that has discoloration or mature skin, which starts with color correction and using smaller, less dense brushes in order to build coverage. If you do plan on using this one brush for all the things, in addition to a microfiber cloth, you may just prefer the brush cleaning tile. So that is this sponge-like tile here. You can do, I like the big one, okay? This is the size of a full, this is a half. I like the big one if I'm going to also be trying to remove cream products as well, which I will next time because I'm gonna use this for my color correction. This half cleaning tile is great for the eyeshadows because when it comes to powder, you can just rub it real quick, but it essentially cleans any excess off your brush with ease. So now I'm gonna take this double-ended brush, okay, and I'm gonna go to the small end. And I'm gonna start the advanced technique with color correction. So I'm going to pack some on to the tip of the brush here, and I'm going to go into the parts of the face where I want to remove any excess color. Now, when you're going to a smaller brush than you've probably ever used before, and it is dense, it might take a little bit of tweaking when it comes to like, okay, how much color correction do I want? This is difficult to buff with. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of pressing onto the area and then dispersing it by kind of sweeping it out. And I'm only gonna use this in small areas, like around the nose, under the eye, where I wanna press this into my excess or my very hyperpigmentation. And then I'm going to color correct the scar on my nose just for the purposes of longevity. And then I'm gonna put my brush together and we are gonna finish our color correction with the more dense end so that we could be faster. So I do need to kind of wiggle this in to the corners of this tin right here. So now I can buff this on with no issue. So I have a lot of redness in this area. So I'm taking that color corrector, buffing it in to tone that down, also using that on the eyelids. I have redness on my chin. And that would be our color correction step, which overall is going to help a little bit with the darkness that you see in here and the darkness that you see under the eye. So for those of you that have discoloration in the under eye area, some darkness, things like that, if you're not getting good coverage with the traditional brightening shade, it's because a brightening shade is meant to add light to the face. It's meant to draw your face, draw someone's eyes to the center of your face. Color correction is meant to diminish any sort of discoloration that you have on the face, excess of color. They don't do the same thing. Now, if you have very little discoloration, of course you're gonna get coverage. But again, for deeper color, you wanna consider getting a color match and getting a color corrector in it. So I have my color match in the description box below. After step one of color correction, now I'm gonna do exactly what you saw on the other side. I'm going to take the dome end, I'm gonna press in, and now we're pressing tap, tap. And I'm gonna press this right on top. Once I have color corrected, I don't want to circle anymore. I buffed in my color corrector, but now I'm pressing on and we're building a light layer. Color corrector is meant to stay where you put it. If I buff or circle, I'm just blending them together, changing the color. This is a thin layer of added coverage that once I put that on top of my color corrector, it's going to tone down the warmth of the color corrector, but it is that orange in color theory that reduces blue and purple. So we use something warmer to reduce that discoloration, and then we press this on top. I'm building up to the same level that I would get with the blush and bronzer brush, because remember, this is not as dense as that. So you may have to press on a little bit more, and that's absolutely fine. It's just the nuance of a new brush. And again, I like that because I can do more with it than if it is too dense like this end to do all of the steps. In my opinion, this is so dense that it limits what you can do with it. My next step is going to be to contour, so I am going to squeeze that brush together. I'm going to pick up product on the top, and I'm going to stamp on from the top of my ear to the outside corner of my eye to contour the face, and then I'm gonna flick up. We want our contour to lift, so we go ahead and flick it up, versus this right here is gonna move all of the makeup that you put on already, but it's also just gonna create a muddy line on the face. I'm going to go around the forehead, press, press, press. I'm gonna go up into the hairline, underneath the jaw. Pull it down the neck. Now, instead of using this end for the under eye, for me, you certainly can. If you've color corrected underneath there, make sure you press. Don't sweep or swipe, only press. But because I want to get the smallest amount as is possible, I am going to open this back up and use the larger of the two small ends. And I'm going to press in to my brightener, and I'm going to go underneath that eye bag, down the side of the nose, and into the center of the face with this small tapping motion. Press, press, press. Not only am I building up coverage, but now I'm also brightening the center of the face, doing our highlight and contour. Contour is the darkness on the perimeter that's meant to mimic natural shadows and cause your face to look more sculpted. It actually has this natural bone structure to it that when we just take this one color and put it all over the face, we tend to lose the natural bone structure. Now, highlighting and contouring became really popular like over the last handful of years when you see people like the Kardashians and whatnot doing it. But the concept of highlight and contour was really just to mimic the natural bone structure that we have and not to lose the integrity of the face simply by putting an all over foundation, especially because back in the day, foundation, generally speaking, was much heavier than it is now. You know, you had double wear was like pretty common. And not that people don't wear that now, they absolutely still do, but you have really a variety of options. And contouring with a foundation that is heavy really helps bring structure back to the face. So now I have this brush that I'm still gonna use for the eyes, but I am gonna go into my perfector sponge and I'm gonna remove any excess. This is gonna help the skin continue to look skin-like. It's also gonna help marry all of your colors together. Going to build my brush back together, and it's time to finish this up. So let's go ahead into the dome end. Let's bronze, high points of the face. If contour adds structure, bronzer adds some life with warmth. They're not the same. You can definitely sculpt with bronzer if you don't want the same shadowy structure of a contour. It's gonna be a different finish. It's a matter of preference. There isn't a right or a wrong, but they definitely don't do the same thing. We add warmth to the skin so that we look, generally speaking, more alive, so that our skin looks a little bit more glowing, which gives kind of more that youthful glow because it emulates like blood flow and sun. And I recommend as we head into winter, like most people that are scared or uncomfortable with bronzer tend to stay away from it in the winter because they feel like it's more natural to look tan or have some warmth in the summer. But your skin likely is already providing that for you. Even if you wear a lot of sunscreen, most people still get a flush to the face. Somebody like me, I get quite a bit darker in the summer. As I start to lose that and I start to feel more pale and a little bit more sallow, bronzer is the first thing that I'm grabbing towards because it makes me feel just a little bit more alive in the winter. I actually think it's more important in your makeup routine in the winter than it is in the summer. So you can always sharpen your lines a little bit. Just be cautious. If you did color correct or whatnot in this area and you're kind of using this to sharpen, you're gonna be moving product. My color correction is here. So now I'm gonna pat out my under eye, make sure I have no creasing or anything like that before we go in to our powder. Oh, we don't have blush on. Jeez Louise. So I'm adding blush, same as before. And this is all gonna kind of be in the same area where here's my contour. I put my bronzer there to bridge that gap. And now I'm just adding blush. Essentially in that same general area as the bronzer, but filling the cheek, 2 fingers outside of the nose, smile, creating this fullness and then lift. Go up on the forehead a little bit if you want to create some continuity in your makeup. If it ever feels off, like your eyes are off or like this part of the face just looks different because you have so many different colors here, add something up here, add something to the eye. Like one simple thing that you can do is you can take your bronzer and like connect it outer corner and like flick it up. So if my eye look, this is a very natural eye look, so it doesn't have that issue. But if my eye look is too cool and the rest of my face is warm, adding a little bit of bronzer or taking a color eyeshadow that's similar to the bronzer and adding something to the eye, just bridging the gap in the colors that are here and here, it will help so much. I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but we have our blush on our face. Now I'm gonna go to this end. I am gonna make sure that I don't have any cream on here. I don't remember the last thing I used on here. So let's go ahead into our powder portion, and I'm just going to press, and you'll see it picked up quite a bit. If that's too much, either tap it off, tap it on the back of your hand, and I'm gonna go out here, press, probably a little too much. It is very dense. And now I'm gonna go underneath the eye, into those smile lines, T-zone, down the nose. And these are the areas that I like to reduce glow, ensure I don't have creasing, and mattify a little bit. I like to keep this area always nice and glowy, and the jawline's a matter of preference. So if you want, and when I say mattify, it's not matte matte. So whether you like matte matte or you don't, it's more satin matte. Just a little glow reduction without looking dry. If you want something more mattifying, you would just want to pick a different powder. Make sure I get my eyelid. And now we're ready for that same eye look. Big fluffy end. This is our mid-tone matte, which is going above the crease and into the crease, bringing it kind of connecting here. Circular motion, outer corner to build up a little bit of depth. Also, we're always blending up if we can. We can clean up this edge later. I'm gonna go into this end, press on some of that drift to lighten the actual lid. Tap tear duct underneath the brow. And with these smaller ends, I'm gonna wipe off this very small end here. I'm gonna go back into my contour, and should have done this before I powdered, but I did want to show you the versatility. You can nose contour easily with this brush. Like super easy. Lip contour. And that's it. That is how you do 2 different ways, full face, with our Pilot brush. You guys, all I need is some mascara, which I will do off camera, but I hope that this was helpful. Do you have questions? Really, you can experiment and kind of figure out what works best for you. And now you have options where you can do a super quick 5-minute face. You can do more of a medium coverage, being sure to color correct, which allows you to take this brush with you anywhere you go and get any finish that you like. And that's why I'm very impressed by the way in which it was built. I think, like I said, I think it was very thoughtfully put together, and I think it is incredibly versatile, but with any switch. If you're somebody who can do their makeup like without even thinking about it, I just wanted to be sure that you had a resource with this video so that you know, like, okay, here's some tweaks that I need to make based on the different density of the brushes to get the same outcome that I have now, but maybe also to get some outcomes that you weren't getting before. So now again, we have options. I hope you guys found today's video helpful. Drop all your comments below. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. I'm always thankful that you guys are here. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps our channel. And if you don't already, I would love if you would consider subscribing. We would love to have you. I will be back next week with another video, so we will see you then. Bye-bye.